What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick Ash Podcast. We are back here today with a very, very special guest, one of my very good friends and my favorite people to talk wrestling with. And I felt like this would be the perfect week, and especially after the events that unfolded from last night, to have none other than my friend Elvis Escobar from Enter the Lab onto the pod. So, Elvis, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
So happy to be back. Ashley Mann, Kick Ash podcast listeners. It's gonna be a fun episode. I missed you this WrestleMania. Got to
Yes.
hang out with you for WrestleMania weekend last year. This year, I'm glad that you were in live presence. You were definitely missed in this house, but I'm excited to jump on again and talk wrestling. Pro wrestling is back. Take out the entertainment a little bit, so I like it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we're definitely gonna get into some talking points with the terminology and just production, just kind of a broad overview of some stuff WWE related, and then kind of nitpick and get into some nitty gritty things as well. So I definitely want to pick your brain since you are just looking at your show, like if you just watch the evolution as well, like you're someone who has an eye for detail, so in the production value. So I'm sure you've noticed some things. So I value hearing what you have to say, and I just like that you're pretty just genuine and honest with some shit. So I'm very excited to hear what you have to say about a lot of things. But we haven't talked much at all prior to the show today, just in regards to the format, in regards to like what we're gonna say, how anyone feels about anything. So it's gonna be pretty raw. So I have no idea how you feel about even like a lot of things from WrestleMania, a general idea, but nothing about AEW last night, which we're gonna start with. But is there anything that you wanna get off your chest first, or do you wanna just dive right into it?
No, Enter the Lab is my podcast, and if you guys heard me on this podcast before, it was probably a year and a half ago. Had fun there, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to. I try to talk a little wrestling as much as possible on my podcast with my co-host Fort Sama. We record every live on YouTube and
Or
X, aka Twitter, um, every Monday night, and we cover a lot of topics. We kind of are like the Breakfast Club of of kind of a cluster of everything and all topics, sports related news. We try to have fun, and we try to have a lot of interviews on there as well. So join us every Monday night if you want to hear something different from a kind of organic brand, kind of grown. But nothing to plug here other than that. But I'm ready to go on AEW. I haven't watched an episode of AEW in a while, and I watched last night, and
oh,
we have a lot to
better.
talk about.
Even better. But no, if you are not listening and following Into the Lab, and I always say this, I am a big fan of the YouTube channel. You can definitely listen to it and stream it, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. But if you have the ability, definitely view it on YouTube. That's just my take with everything because I am a very visual person. I like to see your reaction as well. So yeah, man, that's my little 2 cents of it. But I think with AEW, and if you would like, we can definitely, but I'm not gonna go match for match into detail what happened, because we're all here for one thing, let's not front or anything like that. But I do want to kind of set the stage a little bit and get your ideas and your opinions first in regards to. I guess we'll jump back to All In since this is kind of where everything started, but in the sense of what was your opinion when Punk first left AEW, of course, returned, and then where he is now, we'll get to later in regards to WWE, his injury and things like that. But just in the AEW aspect of him leaving AEW, of course, and we heard rumors and we heard kind of side stories about what happened, and then of course all hell broke loose. I believe it was last week, right, when he spoke with Ariel Helwani. Um, and I'm not sure. Have you even seen? Did you even watch the interview with him, or I know you saw clips, of course, but did you watch
I
the
seen
interview?
clips and last night to prepare for this once I knew I was on because I like to be prepared as much as possible, especially if I'm going to be a guest. I'm a Jim Cornette follower, and he broke it down brilliantly with the interview. They played parts and broke down each part, so I am up to date with that interview. I'm going to watch it in full probably this week just to kind of get the whole vibe from it, though.
Okay, but you know the gist of it and what was said
Mhm.
and referenced and the tone. Okay. So yeah, so like I said, I think it's important just to kind of start from the beginning of this portion of the Punk and AEW of it all. And again, I'll just get this off my chest or and out there first. Like, of course, I am a Punk fan. I don't hide that. Obviously, it's right there. I think it's pretty obvious, but to
Yes.
for it to go without saying, you know what I mean? I don't want to be or come off as that person. You obviously very much know that. But I am in the Punk camp. I try to remain open-minded and not just worship the ground he walks on, you know what I mean? But he is probably one of my top faves. So I'll just say that to say that, because there probably is some biasy there. But going back to All In, what was your reaction? And because I mean, we could, if we were gonna go back to the beginning of shit, we'd be here for like 2 hours just talking about him in AEW. But at least to the All In portion of him being in Wembley. You can even reference, I don't even know if you heard of him missing or them not sending anyone to pick him up from the airport. So he had to ride
I
the
did.
tube and catch the tube, which I thought was fucking hilarious.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but he even mentioned in the interview with Helwani that that didn't bother him. He's still the guy who rides, I think it's the B line or whatever, the pretty much like the Chicago bus when he goes home. So that didn't bother him as much. It's just a reflection of it's pretty unprofessional type shit. Which it, I'll save my opinions, but so kind of your thoughts from there, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. So All In happened what? August 2023, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. So I was watching AEW for up until that point for a full year for sure. I kind of got late to it, and then talking to you more, listening to you on your podcast, I kind of got into it, and starting to learn the development of characters, and for this point with the Jungle Boy turning into Jack Perry, little attitude, which is very awkward because he's very hard to sell as a bad guy when he looks the way he looks. Um,
Sure.
that's another point. But
Mhm.
also CM Punk knowing that he's coming back, and for me, I stopped watching wrestling like most people, I think, that have come back, but I'm kind of in the majority of I stopped watching wrestling from the age of probably 12 or 13 till I was, 20, young 20 something. So I went on a 10, 12-year hiatus, and that happened to be on the same decade of CM Punk being there for the
Right,
most part.
yeah.
John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar. Obviously, I still stayed in tune and I kind of knew what was going on for the most part, but I wasn't watching every week at all. Knew a lot about CM Punk, fell in love with him. The pipe bomb, that's in the Hall of Fame. I can listen to that over and over. I love people that are disruptors. I tend to be a disruptor myself, so I am with you in being a CM Punk stan. But
Facts.
him going to that company initially made sense because I thought that company of AEW was trying to be, obviously they are trying to be different, try to be more raw, radical, and kind of free flowing, independent. It's hard to have that, I'm trying to get into my mindset of August 2023 without thinking
With
of what,
what we know
one
now.
year exactly. So I'm trying
Yeah.
to like only focus on that. I thought it was a good fit because he'd come in, he'd teach the young wrestlers there and teach them the way and be a leader in the locker room, but also be a disruptor, which is good. You could be a leader, but also be a radical. And that's what AEW's foundation is being a disruptor in that way. So when that, there was a couple incidences that happened before All In. Obviously, what was the pay-per-view nicknamed?
The brawl out.
The Brawl
The
Out. The
brawl
what
out.
was it? The
Yeah, the media
but when he
scrum.
but also what was it nicknamed? Uh Chew
Oh,
Out, or somebody had a
oh,
sign back
oh,
in the day. It was called Chew Out or something like that because he took somebody took a bite out of somebody.
oh, something. Yeah, something.
I think
Oh
you
my
posted
god.
it.
Yeah.
That's why I know it. All right, if it comes to
Oh
you,
my
whatever.
god. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, looking back at it, I watched it, and I will say I did not pay for it, so I happened to find a website that happened to have it streaming, and I watched it.
Sure.
So be it. But I was into it. I thought the crowd was electric for them to to go literal all in on something like that was huge. Massive crowd, production, matches were great. And just to just to hear what was going on behind the scenes and CM Punk still able to deliver a quality performance
Yeah.
after that all happened, because it does throw you off your game, like the Young Bucks say. It does throw you off your game a little bit. Just to have that, it just speaks to the professional he has become. We all know CM Punk of cross legs in the middle of the mat, cross legs in under the Titantron, and purposely trying to just be a disruptor. To We watched him evolve into a professional wrestler like a Randy Orton used to. When they
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
Randy Orton used to be the same way, showing up drunk, showing up late. He used to be looked upon like, dude, you're messing up. You have a great opportunity here. And now look at him. Everybody has great things to say. Randy Orton's working with younger talent.
Mm-hmm.
And after that interview, after seeing what's happened from August till now, man, it just you're seeing the evolution of CM Punk. And you hear one side of it, you hear the other side of it, and then you watch the video of it, and it's like, and I'll let your take go for it. That's kind of my general take, just so
Yeah.
we can hear you, because this is who people tune in for. But yeah, that's
Mhm.
kind of where I've learned over the last 8 months or 7 months of watching CM Punk go through what he went through, to now feeling super comfortable. And I would never think he would come to WWE and feel comfortable, feel professional, feel like he's treated as he should be treated. Oh man,
Right.
there's so much to break down in this. It's
Yeah.
wild.
And that's the fascinating part to it. And that's part of the thing that just makes me laugh, because like 10 years ago, this was like in AEW to Punk probably would have been just like a gold mine. And who would have thought that what Punk actually needs and prefers is a WWE, which, and of course, now this is a completely different WWE. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the WWE from even a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You know what I mean? So the timing of everything, I think, is crucial with everything, with AEW, with Punk coming back, with WWE where it's at right now under Triple H. So I think that's the key. But I I so going back to All In, once we heard on Twitter that some shit was happening backstage and that he reportedly told Tony Khan that he quit and all that, and then we found out there's supposed video footage, right? Like, I never thought that we would actually see it, and I am still in fucking disbelief that we saw the actual footage. I just because I can't not say this, but I completely thought that they were going to just give us some BS version, or it was just going to be like a joke, or it's going to be kind of like a bait and switch type thing, or it's going to be like footage from something different. You know what I mean?
I think
Or
no one believed that it was actually going to be footage.
like,
No one believed it until
so
they
I'm
saw it.
yeah, so we're obviously gonna be talking about that in a second, but I just had to get that off my chest. But the fact that Tony Khan, this was, and of course, it's kind of hard, like you said, to separate how I felt back then to what I saw and know now. Um, the fact that this is what the final straw was, as opposed to something that sounds and apparently would be much worse, right? The altercation with him and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Ace Steel with the biting and the NDAs and all this shit that you can't even talk about. Like, but this, what we witnessed with Jack Perry was much worse. So I don't know if it was just an accumulation of things, but obviously I'm gonna pick your brain on that. But I, at the very least, I before we get into it, because I'm probably gonna say some shit that's not flattering, but I am very thankful for AEW. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I love it.
Then the second I saw that fucking jacket and when he was walking, I was like, this is actually it.
Perfect.
This is
Yeah,
it.
right?
Like,
Until you
because
actually
I
seen the
still
movement
wasn't.
of the characters, you're like, "Oh wait, they're actually showing
Yeah,
this.
because I
This is
thought they were gonna
unbelievable."
do. Yeah, dude, I thought they're gonna have like some type of reenactment or some shit, or just make it completely demonetized
Reenacting
and
for
just
sure.
all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, whatever. But then when he walked around and he had that jacket on, those X's, I was like, holy shit, there he's actually showing it. But yeah, man, so let me just say, and I'm sure I'm not gonna speak for you, but I'm sure you probably feel the same.
Mhm.
I love AEW. I went to their very first Dynamite. Like I am a big fan of theirs. I went to Chicago to see Punk's return, when it was a speculation. So I've gone to numerous shows of theirs. Like I've put money into them. I love them, you know what I mean? So none of this is like a diss on them or WWE is better type shit or even pro Punk for that matter. You know what I mean? Because he still had his fault in some shit. And he, which we'll get into, but I just felt like I had to get that out of the way as well because a lot of people either are one-sided or just seem to switch sides when things go one way or things go the other. So regardless of any of this were to have ever happened, and I hope and wish nothing but the best for AEW. And I don't want their
Mm.
ratings to tank next week now because they this or
They'll do
whatever.
that
You know
by
what I mean?
themselves, by the way. You don't have to wish for it.
Yeah. So it is what it is. But with that being said, I'm just gonna kind of get right to it because, of course, they did open the show with Edge versus Penta, which was a good match, and it sucks, because no one's really gonna be talking about that.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Uh, um, I had to fix my strings; it was bothering me. But the the fact that, first of all, like I said, that we actually got the footage, and I will give them credit as well because if and since they did give us the actual real shit, I respect the fact that they try to tie it into their storyline, you know what I mean? And into their match with FTR and tied FTR into this. I don't agree with maybe trying to blame it on them or saying that, oh, they could have been the masterminds because come on, like, but I do kind of like at least respect that fact that, like, okay, if you're gonna show this, at least try to weave it in and not just be like, yo, like break all characters or break everything and just be like, yo, this is real, da 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 da. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That said, before we talk about the video itself, I and I'm curious your response or your opinion, but to me, it's very odd that this got airtime. Like with how active Tony Khan is on Twitter, like if it bothered him this much, first of all, I because last week Edge and kind of gave like a little rah rah for AEW. I need to pull up the date of when the interview was, but I think it was a go home week for WrestleMania because I think that's when they were doing the little media tours that they were doing.
Yeah.
But interview date,
I
but
will say this, the fact that people, just a general statement about what you just said was, I seen after it aired,
yeah,
it
yeah, it was
made
April 2nd. I'm
certain,
sorry.
oh, good. It made, Tony Khan look bad, or, if one company talks about another company, people got to realize the Attitude Era became the Attitude Era because both companies were mentioning in some way, some form of each other, signing each other's um, wrestlers, or somehow they were competing. The Mick Foley don't watch WWE Raw because Mick Foley wins, and that
Yeah,
just
yeah,
generated everybody to switch over. And that's what made that era of the late 90s the best pro wrestling ever. People are knocking, this back and forth saga and drama, but I'm like, this is what made this established into the new era of wrestling on social media or like
hmm
live that you could watch it. It made everything what it is today. So the fact that, and we'll also go into it, the Will Ospreay is this is what wrestling is. It's drama. It's whether it's a work or a shoot, and most of this is all shoot. By the way, it's no like very minimal work is going on. This is what wrestling is all about. So accept. I tell all the wrestling fans out there, accept it all because it's all
yeah,
great. Whether it's making one person look bad, another look great, or vice versa, it's all good because it's drama. And that's what you want in pro wrestling. Yes, what they do in the squared circle is one thing, but why do we all watch wrestling? For the drama, to go on Twitter right away, hashtag whatever, and read what's going on. That's what we all watch it for. At least the diehards like myself, you, and everybody listening. This is what we watch it for. I love it all. Good, bad, ugly. The uglier it gets, the more fun and entertaining it is, you know? So I just had to say that as we lead into
Yeah,
all the drama. As I hold my Pat McAfee action figure, and I'm gonna hold him here because we'll get into
dude,
him
yeah.
a
Oh,
little bit. He's the
love me
new
some Pat.
media pioneer of wrestling, and I love it. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, and of ESPN, essentially. But he's their favorite son, right? But
Yes, yeah, the golden boy.
yeah, yeah. That's such a great action figure too. With his chains.
Thanks. Yeah, right. The chain, it was only
Yeah,
like
that's dope.
$9.99 too. It was the last one left at Walmart. I had to pick it up to go with
That's
my
dope.
collection.
Yeah, yeah. I think you sent that to me in a snap. Pretty
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, but to your point, and to me, that's what that's what makes this so laughable to me. Like amongst so many things, is that, like I said earlier, this was what the final straw was. Like now that we've seen the video, and even going back, because when Tony Khan came out on Dynamite that week after it happened, I'm pretty sure it was Dynamite. He said he feared. Well, I don't. Now take that back. I don't know if I can't recall if he went on stage or if it was a segment backstage, but he said he feared for his life, and he even reiterated that in an interview that he did after that. That this incident caused him to fear for his life, and he had been to wrestling shows for I think over 30 years, but this is the only time he feared for his life. So at that point, I'm thinking, yo, and again, being a punk fan, I'm like, yo, like, bro, like, it sounds like he went wild back there. You know what I mean? Like, Samoa Joe had to break it up, like, just hearing all the craziest shit. And the fact that this was the final straw is the shit I'm just I can't get over. But going back to what Punk said, because and I think the other thing for me too is that going back to the non-response at first, really, from Tony Khan on Twitter,
Hmm.
it was kind of minimal, right? And then Edge came out, pretty much gave a rah-rah speech for AEW, said, "Can't we all be friends? Kumbaya" type shit. And then now they decided to air the footage 8 months later. So it's like, did he not? Was he not mad back then? Like, I'm just trying to figure out why
I will
now.
I will
And
say
of
that
course,
rah rah. Looking back at it, that rah rah by Edge. If you're gonna at least mention it, now looking back at it after this week has happened, he should have mentioned. I get it. Edge is a professional in the sense of wrestler, and he's gonna, he's gonna give credit to where he lays his head and gets paid. And I get it. That's what a professional is.
yeah,
You give credit to who's paying you. But looking back at it, it was kind of a little weak where it's like, all right, Edge, come on. You're having a lot of fun. Let's be honest. You're having a lot of fun because you're making a shit ton of money. You have a lot of freedom. You probably get to do and say whatever you want with no consequence. It seemed a little like empty. And now looking back at that, because I did watch that whole Edge segment, it should have had a little bit more muster in it. Now that I look at it,
mm-hmm,
and I get why he would do that. Is like, hey, I'm having the most fun, most whatever. He's promoting AEW, but it's man, the pictures of the empty arena and stuff like that, and that's what Jim Cornette was talking about, or that's what CM Punk talked about, was if you're not trying to make money and be a draw, then we're not in the same business. And that's what stood out to me in that interview was
yeah,
WWE is about money, making money. I get that wrestling is important, and we all could agree to that.
mm-hmm,
Watching wrestling, you got to watch good wrestling. But man, if you're not being a draw, if you're not selling superstars, what's the wrestling about? That's really secondary when you talk about promoting and becoming an icon and a legend individually. Because I talk about wrestling to my friends that don't watch weekly, that hung out all weekend long, and all they had to talk about is, yeah, the wrestling's cool. And we kind of talked while the wrestling was going on during
mm-hmm,
WrestleMania. But
yeah,
what they focus on, and my friends that don't watch it and who AEW and WWE trying to pull in, are the cool factor. And wow, that sounds interesting. I like the way they did this. And that's what WWE is a master at, and AEW is still trying to figure out.
And it's a shame because it didn't. I feel like it's gotten to this point way too soon, and that's what concerns me. Like I still don't feel like they're in danger of going out of business or anything like that. Granted, we don't know their next TV
No,
deal
as long as
yet
they
or
got
any.
money pumping into it, they're not going out of business.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what Punk referenced in his interview as well.
Yeah.
He was like, because I think Ariel asked him a similar question, like, where do you see AEW being successful? And Punk was like, well, what is your definition of success or some shit like that, because and it's
That
a
was a
very
great
broad
point.
question. Yeah, because it's like that's true. Like AEW will be a thing as long as Tony Khan wants to pump money into it, and I don't want to compare it to any other company out there, you know what I mean? But that's very TNA like, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
joke for TNA for the longest time has been like, how does TNA make money? And there have been wrestlers who have been asked that question and they don't know the answer. And that's fine, that's not our business. It's not a publicly traded company. That's not our business. Whoever owns it and whoever wants to pump money into it, good for them. That's again not my place, it's not my bag to worry about. But the point that like and the part that bothers me and concerns me is that I wanted to be a real number 2, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be
Me
exciting. Like
too.
I don't want it to just
I
be
think we all do, for sure.
yeah, like I don't know. Like I'm not one of those people who wants it to go out of business or anything like that. Like I wanted to thrive, and the fact that Tony is just reacting and not being proactive with shit, like that's what concerns me. It's like if this really bothered you, bro, like that week you should have been out there like, yo, I fear for my life and this is why, and shown the footage. You know what I mean? Or shown the
Yeah.
footage like shortly after if it was that big of a deal to you. The fact that you're doing it now in response to me is just kind of first like and in two ways it like in part of it I'm kind of like, yo, I respect the pettiness, you know what I mean? Because like like it's very hard for any of us to if we're a billionaire and we have footage and we spent millions of dollars on this dude to come work for our company, shit went south, he goes on an interview and pretty much shit talks me and says I'm a terrible boss and I don't know how to run a business, makes me look like trash, and
Yeah.
I probably could go out there and verbally say some shit, but then I'll look just as bad. I have video footage, fuck it, I'm gonna release it, you know what I mean? The pettiness
And
in me,
also
I can't say I wouldn't do something similar,
And
you know what
also,
I mean?
you're
Not saying it's
struggling at
right.
this point to get views, and he did
Yeah.
tweet out, and I have it pulled up. Tony Khan tweeted
Oh
today
god.
at 4:37. Just got the great news from TBS Network last night. Wednesday night Dynamite up 29% from last week, and he promoted these stats. Thank you all for watching. I get why he would do it, and I get it. And in this
Yeah.
world of ratings and trying to create and try to almost piggyback off of WrestleMania and do that, it makes sense in the wrestling world too, and entertainment is to take advantage of a situation that's brought to light from WWE on the biggest scale and try to draw some people. It worked. It worked
Yeah.
on me, and it worked on millions of people or hundreds of thousands. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
worked because I stopped watching. First of all, I started watching AEW because of you. You were doing podcasts and we were talking, and I went to two. I went one with you in what was that, Miami? A
I think
Dynamite,
so. Yeah, I think it
and
was.
then I went to another one with my friends recently to another Dynamite. So I've gone to Dynamite twice because I wanted to see and I liked what they were doing. I stopped watching when MJF went off and got written off and injury wise and whatever went on with um uh
Adam
buddy
Cole.
Adam Cole, sorry.
Yeah, in
Adam
the
Cole.
Undisputed Kingdom.
Yeah, I didn't like what they were doing with the whole friendship, and they were almost like, Jesus, I hope we all forget when MJF comes back that he even did some of those promos, because they were very awkward and very, I hate to use the word ick, but that seems to be the phrase now. But they were kind of awkward, and it was overselling the best friend thing, and I get why they were doing it, to have the end point of he turns on him. But man, you lost a great character in MJF for like what,
Yeah.
6 months just to sell something that he'd go away for another 6 months. And I stopped watching after that turn. I literally don't think I watched another episode after MJF left or he took some time off. And I just started watching now recently with Adam Copeland coming back a little bit, Mercedes Monet a little bit. Once MJF comes back, I'm going to be back all in because that's my guy. I love him. I think he completely changes the atmosphere
Yeah.
of every Dynamite and whatever program they have. And
He's the
man,
star.
yeah, he's a superstar. And,
He's the
and
star, dude.
we in one company we overuse that word superstar, but man, he's a superstar.
Yeah.
He sells, and since he's gone off air, the ratings and the attendance has suffered. So proof is in the pudding. Tony Khan's gonna have to either overpay him or WWE is gonna just snag him. So
Oh,
that's
easily,
that's the
dude.
realization of the situation. MJF is sitting at home and just hopefully he's sipping on some good wine like I am right now, and he just like, ooh, every week that goes by, his paycheck just goes up $250,000.
Yeah, no, facts. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm happy you brought MJF up because he I went to it was Monday. They were doing a Pat McAfee taping at the WWE World at the Convention Center in Philly.
So jealous.
And it was I bring it up because Cody came out there obviously at one point, and I forget what they were talking about, but the crowd started chanting MJF, and they chanted MJF. I want to say at least 3 different points throughout the weekend, and I was only
I
there
did hear that.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So it's like, and Pat McAfee, I'm pretty certain he even referenced it, like, even they pretty much acknowledge, like, he's gonna have a great future type shit. But if Tony doesn't open the bag for him, dude, like, I don't know what he's even doing. And I'm sure he will. Like, I don't see him, like, being stingy when it comes to NJF because he knows, like, that's their guy, and it should be. Like, their
If
homegrown guy,
WWE
especially.
could snag MJF away and MJF
Dude.
realizes, like I said, I hope, like you said, actually, I hope AEW remains a number two and rivals and puts out good, pay-per-views or good shows weekly because I'll watch. I got time. But man, I do wish to see he's not even in his prime. Because what's crazy about wrestling is your prime is after your 30s. Because
Now yeah.
if you look at every wrestler that is like prime, like Roman Reigns just entered his prime, I would say during COVID, he was still in his 30s, 32, 33. He's now in his late 30s. It's like MJF got TV cred and all this publicity in his 20s. I think he's 27,
Mhm.
28 maybe. Oh my God. The only if it was run under the Vince McMahon era, I would say I don't know if MJF can be who he really is in that era. But now that I'm seeing the Triple H era, which I love that people were throwing their flowers, Paul Heyman during the Hall of Fame speech. Oh my God, that was
Mhm.
amazing. If you didn't watch that and you love
Dude.
pro wrestling, watch that 45 minutes of Paul Heyman Hall of Fame speech. It gave me goosebumps like several times. It was so awesome. For him to give the flowers, for Cody and all these people just constantly giving credit without condemning Vince McMahon by name or by too much. They did it in a great way where it's like a new era. The old regime is gone. Now we look forward. They did it in such a professional way this past weekend that it made me proud to be a wrestling fan again, especially with WWE. And I think the last time we were on doing a podcast, I think we had the opposite feeling. I'm pretty sure if
Yeah, I think
I go
so.
back, I think
I
we
think so.
badmouthed a lot of what WWE was doing. It was, for the
Probably.
last, I started rewatching WWE in 2015, 16 when I moved down to Florida. So it's been almost, 10 years, 8 years now that I've been, and it's not been a good product. They've been trying, they're still goofy and corny and not something I would invite my friends over to watch. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
my friends, I didn't invite anybody over on Sunday, yet I had people hit me up like, yo, what are you doing? Well, I'm coming over. And that was without
Yeah,
me
dude.
having to ask. And I'm telling you, if you know some of the people that were here, they are kind of like, they don't even understand wrestling or want to understand, but they were entertained. So it speaks volumes to what the company is doing. So I hope that now with the new era, MJF can flourish in this current regime and can go from AEW to the new regime and still be who he is. Controversial, do some promos that are, they're going to Netflix in October. So that ties in.
Yeah, dude.
They're gonna get a
Yeah.
big bag from that. So they're gonna have some spending money. I look at it as professional sports. They're gonna have some money to spend on some free agents. And who do you bring into free agency to open up your Netflix regime?
Bro.
Somebody like him, like that. That's like the
Yo.
ideal person. If in a perfect world, that's who you want in on your program every single week. Somebody that, because on Netflix you're going to be able to curse, you're going to be able to do whatever you want. No commercials. They'll have commercials like little segments and stuff like that, I'm sure,
Sure. Yeah.
but they'll have the ability to just do whatever they want, and that's what WWE and that's what wrestling is all about.
Dude, yeah, and I think just to finish up on that Netflix point that you made there, because that's a good point. I think The Rock really kind of gave us a tease of that on Monday. With now, I will say I haven't gone back and watched the full Monday Night Raw back, on TV, but if a certain word made it across screen, and just the fact that he's dropped it now, I think twice on TV. I think that's a pretty good sign, you know what I mean? And it's not like they have to be saying like the F bomb every other word, you know what I mean? But just like don't be like afraid to say shit, you know what I mean? Like
The
and
Rock has
if it's
been
natural, like what the
cursing
fuck?
more than I do on our Enter the Lab podcast. I'm telling you, this
Yeah,
guy is
bro. Like
unleashed. I think he's almost, whether it's approved or not, he is just pulling it out and saying, I'm going to say whatever I want. Even if they bleep it, it still looks cool. And I hate
mhm.
the bleeping of like the fans in the background on
Oh, me
SmackDown and all
too.
this. Like even when they say like holy shit and they bleep it out, it's like, come on, guys. Like I watch SVU on the same program that you're airing WWE, and
Yeah.
they say the most wild things. And that's a program that's been going on for 30 years. Like, you can't say the S word or the P word or the F. Like, come on. Like, you're being a little bit too nitpicky. But this new, I'm telling you, come October, come November, we're going to see, not saying that cursing is important, but it lets people be free creatively
Yeah.
and The Rock has been doing whatever he wants. And I think he's
Dude.
done it premeditatedly, knowing that we're going into this new kind of flow of free form programming and platform that, hey, do and say whatever you want. It might not be right. You might have a conversation in the back with the CEO, but at least you'll be on Twitter trending for at least 24
Yeah.
hours, you know?
Facts. Facts. Uh dude, all right. So I have to get to it because I can't wait anymore. The video
Yes,
footage of it all. We're going to
do it.
so I first have to reference what Punk said because and again, tell me if I'm off base, but I'm gonna read a little bit of, like some quotes that he had from a brief recap of what he said to Ariel Hawani,
All right.
and then we'll go
I'm going
to
to
the
go on
actual
mute and
footage.
get a new batch of wine, and I'm listening.
All right, bro. So, in regards to Punk stating what he did prior to the video footage being aired, Punk was with, of course, Ariel Hawani. And again, I'm reading the transcript from this from lastwordonsports.com. So, shout out to them. I used them last time. But anyway, so Punk reference when Jack Perry, so to set the scene, they're backstage. Jack Perry just had his match with Hook in the pre show for All In back in August 2023. Punk's side of things is that when Jack came back through the curtain, Punk said he questioned Jack. So, if we recall, Jack during the match, I believe it was, I forget what type of vehicle, possibly a limo. He pointed to the windshield or some glass, obviously, on the vehicle and said, "Real glass, cry me a river." That, of course, was a call out to Punk because Punk had referenced and pretty much shot down a angle that Perry wanted to do prior to, which apparently was Jack wanting to bust out the window of a rental car. Punk said that's a dumb idea because you're going to ruin it for the boys type shit because you're going to make it more difficult for the boys to actually rent a vehicle, and that's pretty much their main way of transportation in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can use Uber, but you need a fucking rental car. So why do some dumb shit? Is essentially what Punk was saying. So after Jack Perry, so that's the backstory. After Jack Perry says that shit into the camera, mind you, into the camera. Yes, it was a pre-show, but the whole idea of the pre-show is to get people excited for the main show. So if you're doing dumb shit like this, and I think at one point Punk even referenced that he was going into business for himself, and saying shit like that. Um, it is what it is, you know. Some people could say it's selfish, not my place to judge that part. But Perry came back through the curtain and Punk questioned Jack. He was like, "Why did you do dumb internet shit?" So, and keep this in mind because as you guys have seen, I can't show the video. I can't even splice it in because I don't know if you heard AEW is going through and they've copyrighted the video and they're pretty much like cracking down on anyone who shares it and includes it. So you'll still be able to find it elsewhere, but you'll see Punk walking up to Perry. Apparently, at that point, Punk is saying, "Why did you do this dumb internet shit?" Jack said to do something about it. Punk's response was, "I thought I was." This is one of the best parts. Punk's response was, "I thought I was doing the responsible thing. I just choked someone a little bit." Which, like, hey, and
Confirmed he did choke somebody a little bit. Confirmed.
a little bit, and he thought he was doing the responsible thing. He didn't sock him, he didn't like just like throw his head into a wall or anything crazy or. He just did the responsible thing and took someone a little bit. Punk, then of course we know did go on to compete in his match at All In because of his respect for Joe, Jerry Lynn, and the referee, and of course the fans, because yeah. At the other point in the video, you will see Punk and Punk references that he yells over, and you'll see there's I think 3 monitors set up to the right, and Tony Khan is apparently behind one of those. Punk or hits at one point they hit the monitors. I don't even know if it actually completely fell, but it was shaking.
One
Or maybe they
definitely
caught it.
fell.
Okay, okay,
One monitor
okay,
I seen. I
okay.
watched it over and over. It fell
It
for
did fall.
sure.
Okay, okay. But at that point, and after they were separated, Punk yelled to Tony Khan that quote, "You're a clown, I quit." And sure, much angrier than that. So that was Punk's recap, you know what I mean? And then he just goes on to say he's not a boss, he's a nice guy type shit. So that's his opinion, not my place to judge on that shit. So that's what Punk said happened. Now we see the video that's aired in the footage. So this recap, I'm just gonna read it and then I'm gonna get your thoughts, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about this shit.
I love it.
Um, this is from ProWrestling.net, so shout out to Jason Powell. He does great work and great transcriptions because it could not be me. I don't have that focus during the show. I can't do it. I try, but I can't. Even making notes is hard sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
um, but he's of course, and Jason kind of breaks down everything like segment by segment, hold by hold type shit, or pretty close to it. But I'm just gonna start off being to set the scene. We have Matthew and Nicholas Jackson backstage, and they're saying I think they said yeah, the footage was short and it resembled a high school scrap, which just before we even get to the video, them saying that was the first time that I laughed out loud for this because your boss, the owner of the company, feared for his life because of this shit. And you have Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the EVP, saying it resembled a high school scrap. So it's like, my dude, and again, like I shouldn't judge what scares people to possibly their death, but it's just like that was the first thing that stood. I'm just like, okay, so it could have been that bad. Because even if the Young Bucks are saying, yo, it was a high school scrap, I don't know. But that was the first thing that I was just like, okay, so where are we going with this? And then I was like, okay, so this can't be the real thing. But It was. The footage showed Jack Perry backstage with referees and other personnel. CM Punk approached him and they spoke, but there was no audio on the Secureo footage, which sucked. I so wish we had audio, man. So wish we had some audio. But Punk eventually shoved Perry twice. I think they were kind of mouthing back and forth. Maybe, what was it, 5-10 seconds? Maybe, if that long? Something like
It
that.
seemed a little longer than it seemed about
Maybe. Maybe
15,
so.
20 seconds from when he approached them.
And when they actually, yeah, because, and during the majority of it, Perry was just fooling with his hair. Like just running his hands through his hair, just kind of doing whatever.
I think
You
he was
have,
getting checked in the back from medical if he
mm-hmm,
had anything in it, like if he had shards or glass or anything, like getting attention. And he seemed a little like kind of I guess when you go back towards a curtain, you kind of the adrenaline comes down. So he's fixing himself and he definitely didn't expect CM Punk to approach him. That's for sure.
definitely not. And we also had old boy Samoa Joe in the far left corner, just kind of standing there, just probably whatever, just mentally getting in the vibe because Joe and Punk were opening. They were the opener on the online pay per view. Um, so Punk, it's actually kind of brief here what Jason has recapped, but just kind of going back, Punk approached Jack Perry, but there's no audio. Just to remind you of that, which again sucks. So wish we had audio because that would have most likely changed everything. Punk eventually shoved Perry twice and then put him in a front face lock or a guillotine. Joe was nearby and joined the referee and Jerry Lynn in pulling Punk and Perry apart, and then Punk left the scene. And then he goes on to say that the Bucks said that wasn't even the worst part of the incident, and then that's when the Bucks try to just like sweep it and just kind of like worm it back into the storyline with FTR. Um, but I'm just gonna pause it there because that's Jason's recap. To give a little bit more info, we do have a Chris Hero sighting. He was the guy that was just like the Scream guy. Can't believe
Yeah.
it happened. We do have good old Malachi Black who
It's
was
such a
walking
genuine
around with his coffee.
reaction because that's what like all of us would do. Like
Yeah, because
he's
it's like,
probably thinking
oh my
like,
god, like
is CM Punk even gonna go out right now? Like he's probably
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
not only what just happened, but he's got a match in about 5-10 minutes. Like what's gonna
yeah,
happen?
exactly. So again, a lot of people are throwing Joe his flowers again because he was the main one to kind of at least grab Perry and separate the two. And mind you, the whole I think someone had reported that the time that Punk shoved Perry from the first shove to the time he had got him in the guillotine and it was broken, it was like 6 or 7 seconds. So it wasn't long at all. I don't know the time on that, but just to kind of set the stage, it wasn't long at all from the first shove to when it was separated. Um, but my dude, I'm gonna let you go because I talked a lot. So your initial
Yeah.
thoughts.
So like we mentioned, I didn't think they were actually gonna show it. I was hopeful that they would, and I was with anticipation. And obviously, I like that they. I will give credit to AEW and the Young Bucks to a couple things. The way they talked about it, they are playing a douchiest douchebag of douchebaginess of all time. And hey, that's a character and I love it. But and the way they led to the footage of like, oh, you can't mention that, you can't talk about that, how they did another take. They had like a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of like creativity in there. So it wasn't just like bash, 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 we're dumb, let's play the footage. They had a little creativity and production into it, and I loved when they first played the footage. I was just like, oh my god, I think I wanted to play it, like pause it and like take it in and then replay it again.
Yeah.
I definitely replayed it a few times as they did it. Um, I do like that the second thing I do like overall before I get to the actual footage is how they did tie it into something with relevancy. They
Mm-hmm.
did, whether it was their call or not their call, they did at least tie it into FTR and like, hey, maybe you conspiracy, you made this happen, you threw us off our game, and that's what wrestling is try to find a different angle of like, this is why we lost and this is why we're going to beat you next time because we're not going to be throwing off our game. I do like that. I do like that it wasn't just an empty, we're going to show footage, bad mount somebody, and then we go. I like that they did tie it into a storyline. The actual footage, confirmed everything that CM Punk mentioned in that interview, almost, without audio, word, not word for word, but play by play to his word by. It looked like CM Punk approached them. They talked for at least 10, 20 seconds, whatever it was. It seemed kind of cordial, but with a little vigor, because if you look at the video, not a lot of people come towards them. There's somebody in the back of CM Punk to the right back of him that is kind of monitoring, listening, like, all right, is something about to go down? But
Yeah, that's
nobody
Jerry
else.
Lynn. I have
Okay.
it put up
So
here, yeah.
yeah, you know a lot more about it behind the scenes than I do. But there's nobody else that really approaches the situation, because usually when two people are arguing, you might want to like move towards them a little bit, eavesdrop, or like, all right, if I have to break this up, I will. Nobody really moved. So you could tell it was probably a back and forth little bit, like this, that, this, that. And then Jack Perry flips his hair. Excuse me. And you could tell he said something, because if CM Punk went up to Jack Perry wanting to throw hands or get physical, he probably would have done it sooner, because I'm sure there's not much you have to say to CM Punk to get him triggered up like that. But I think in this age of him trying to be a professional, he probably held back, and he said something and he threw a push, not a punch. And then that escalated it. And obviously Samoa Joe popped in. Hook was seen to the far left, didn't do a damn thing. He just was looking like, what is going on? And that's kind of what I would be doing. It's like, I'm not getting involved, but I'm going to make sure I watch it. I would love to hear and see Hooks. This is a Dark Side of the Ring, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that we
Yeah.
can get into. I have to cough real.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Excuse me.
I have it playing again in the background.
And it looks like it just escalated quickly. And I love the crowd. I think they played it in the crowd with at Dynamite, and everybody's chanting CM Punk.
CM Punk, yeah.
I think I also seen another tweet that CM Punk is the second person only to Rick Rude to appear in multiple companies in the same week, which was a phenomenal tweet.
I'm so happy you said it, because I literally thought that when I was outside with my dogs. I was like, wait a second. Yes, you're spot
Awesome,
on.
right?
Go ahead.
And
Yeah.
that's basically all I have. Is he put him in a guillotine, like he said, choked him out a little bit, and then Samoa Joe came over, broke him up, pulled Jack Perry off. CM Punk got separated, and you saw what CM Punk said. You get like his words where he looked at Tony Khan, said, "This place is a joke. You're a fucking clown. I fucking quit." And it's funny because I don't even need the audio for that. It looked like that's what he was saying, because it was
Exactly.
quick. He looked his way. He didn't charge him. He looked at his way. He definitely said those words, and then he got pulled off. The other thing I wanted to end on about this video was Jim Cornette, the Experience, brought this up. They believe, and I agree with this, trying to protect yourself legally when you have to fire somebody or let somebody go, or you don't know what's going to happen because of this. I think legally he was told, Tony Khan, come out, say that you feared for your life, say that the reason why you had to go your separate ways was because it does look like it. If you don't have any story, let's say you don't know anything and you just watch the video, you go, oh, CM Punk was unhinged, and it looked like he was about to charge somebody in management. So Tony Khan got some good counsel of saying, obviously he's got the money, is saying like, hey, you need to come out and front this and say you feared for your life, which whether right or wrong, you have to protect yourself as a company, as an individual. So he did. I think that's why, because you brought it up earlier, saying he feared for his life. I don't think literally, but in the future, I think he had to prepare for anything that was going to happen moving forward. He had to protect himself from that. So I think, man, I'm just grateful to be back watching wrestling, because I love the drama. People ask me why I watch wrestling, and this is the reason. I love wrestling for in the ring. I mostly skip over some of the in ring during SmackDown or Raw, but I watch it for Dark Side of the Ring. I've watched every episode since. I watch it for the YouTube, the interviews, the biographies, all of it. And I'm sure you're similar to me, where I love the business side and the drama side of wrestling
Mhm.
more than I like the in ring of it. I love it because it's human beings in a business fighting to be number one. Everybody wants number one. And people are like, oh, he has a title. Well, someone gave him that title. No, someone gave him that title because they looked at that person and realized they can make us more money. They can draw more eyeballs. I love the business aspect of that. So I love all of it. I love the drama. I hope it never stops. I hope this goes on for weeks without watering down the product of both sides, because the second thing we'll have to go into after briefly, if we can, because we do have to get into WrestleMania 40, is the Will Ospreay. And I
Yes, we
have
definitely
my
will.
own opinion about that. So go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm very interested. I think we may differ, but I could be wrong on that. So I'm very curious. But
I hope we differ. I hope we differ.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say yeah, but I'm gonna say that. But but going back to this first, and another part that made me laugh, it's the fact that what was the point? Again, I already said earlier, I appreciate and I respect the pettiness because who knows if, like I said, if I was Tony Khan exactly in his same position, who knows if I probably would have done the same shit or if wanted to done the same shit. May have even done it earlier. Who knows? My question though is, it was obviously released in response to what Punk said 2 weeks ago on April 2nd, whatever the day was. But nothing that Punk said did the video discredit. It pretty much lined up, like you said, exactly what happened. Now, granted, did he what did he, regarding the guillotine, did he maybe downplay or he thought he was doing the responsible thing? Responsible can be a subjective term to different people.
Mm-hmm.
My responsibility could be something different to him. Who am I to judge?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But that's his opinion. Would I have put someone in a guillotine? Probably not, because I'm not really that good of a fighter yet, so I don't really know what I'm
I
doing.
probably would have tried to if I'm me. So I like that
But
we differ in that.
yeah, not that I wouldn't want to, but like I just know, like, pick my battles type shit. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's what he did because it is Jack Perry, you know what I mean? Like, in just size wise, Punk's got the advantage right then and there. It's not like this
Of
is a
course.
Joe and Punk situation and Punk did this to Joe type shit, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. But and I totally agree with you about the whole point with Tony Khan and him saying he feared for his life or legality. Makes 1,000% sense, you know what I mean? Like, it's just you didn't have to go on TV and say that shit, my guy. Like, you could have, if you were
Yeah.
asked this in one of the many press conferences that he used to do, that could have been his response. Like, yeah, like it got pretty serious. I feared for my safety. I feared for my life. Even if you have to say I feared for my life, but like the fact that he went on TV and did all that shit is just like, all right.
But
But
but also now looking at it, like if they wanted to do the angle with the Young Bucks and FTR leading up to, now that I know, because I didn't know this before, Dynasty, which airs what, next week or
at
two
least the
weeks from now?
27th or the
Yeah,
24th,
I
whatever
wrote it down to make
that date
sure
is.
that I knew. It's if they wanted to like solidify that angle, you didn't have to show the videotape. You could have just done a great quality promo talking about it, mentioning it, it would have been fine because it's actual facts. And you still could have done the angle of FTR. You set this up. This was your friend. You
Mm-hmm.
sent this way to throw us off your game. And then kind of you're in cahoots still now to see him. But like you could have like still had that angle without showing the footage. The showing as a fan, we're all grateful that the footage was shown because it gives us something to have a podcast about. But if you're a business, you're Tony Khan, you're the EVPs, you don't have to show the footage in order to create this angle with FTR. So FTR did a great job of, I didn't know, I'm not I'm a fan of FTR as far as their work ethic and, their story as far as going from company to company and still being on top no matter where they are. But I'm watching that promo on Dynamite, and I didn't know if it was a work or a shoot. I still don't know if they were saying things that were pre-planned or they just went out there and was like, "Hey, Tony, we're gonna say X, Y, and Z, and we might say a little
Yeah.
bit more. Let us go." And I'm sure Tony was like, "Just go. It'll create more
At
ears
this
and
point, fuck
eyes."
it, just say shit. Like at this
Yeah,
point,
but
I
man,
mean, like,
that was that was probably the best. And I've watched many FTR promos, and I'm usually I'm like, it doesn't have vigor. They say they're the top guys, but it doesn't feel like it. Usually they're like, oh my God, no offense. Look at my daughter. I do this for them. And I cry a little bit and I'm sad. And yeah, I'm the good guy. But man, this one had, I don't know. And I hope I don't know if that was a work or a shoot because I have no idea what that promo was. It felt real. And I'm going to go with that was a real promo of how they went about talking about what they talked about. And I love the part
yeah,
where they were like, and if it wasn't for the founders of AEW, including the Young Bucks, I would still be shaving his back. And I thought that, like, if you know, you
yeah,
know, like, because that's what
yeah.
the angle was with WWE
With
prior
the
to
Usos,
them
yeah.
leaving. Yeah, so I think it was brilliantly done. Like, you might have bad to say about the video footage and the Young Bucks, but man, the FTR tied that brilliantly together and did a great promo in the ring and tied it all together to make it make sense. If it didn't make sense before they came out, they made it make sense. So I love that.
Absolutely. And now I have one other question for you about this,
Mm-hmm.
and then another just observation. And of course, a lot of people are touching on it now, but the response by of Tony Schiavone right after the segment finished, and then I'm going to ask you about something similar later on. But and again, if you know me, like I love Tony Schiavone. I will admit I've kind of fallen off track with my routine with listening to his podcast, but I love Tony Schiavone. I love just the dude that I feel is a genuine like person. Just listening to him on his podcast, like the fact that when WCW went under, he went and did baseball, but there was hard times. He went and worked at Starbucks. Like he did what he had to do. You know what I mean? Like he's not afraid to admit shit like that, and like he embraces it, and he just kind of worked his way back up. You know what I mean? And now I'm sure he's making a pretty nice paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing his reaction, bro, and just seeing how he was almost wanting to just cover his face entirely and just like didn't really want to look at the camera and just like probably couldn't wait until again, just
Yeah.
my opinion, speculation, probably couldn't wait for the cameras to be off of him and just to just move the fuck on. And that's what's upsetting for me too. And this is my question is why what's upsetting is the fact that we're still harping and talking about someone who's not even with the company because it's not like we're gonna get a Jack Perry and CM Punk match. You know, I mean, Jack Perry is doing his own thing in New Japan right now. I will say that I saw that his scapegoat T-shirt has like sold out, so that's
Seen
dope. I'm
that.
happy
Yeah.
for him there. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, what I mean, that's a positive. But what are we doing? What are we building to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like he wasn't really the
That's
scapegoat. Like, what is he being the scapegoat for? Like, who's I don't know. Like, I guess yes, fans did blame Perry for getting Punk fired, but it's not like Punk is blaming Perry. He's just saying that as a whole, like Jack Perry did a stupid thing and he said he did what he did. But at the end of the day, Punk blames Tony Khan, for not handling things from the jump because Punk wanted to be had let go after the first shit happened at Brawl Out. The fact that AEW Collision was created, the fact that separate rosters were being created just to potentially avoid all this, and it still ended up happening. Like I don't know, like again, like I'm not here to I don't know shit. I'm not here to point blame and say like, oh, it was Tony Khan's fault. But I mean, the buck stops with you, my guy. You know what I mean? And that's what hurts me as a fan to say because it doesn't have to be like this. But I don't
I
know.
love I love organized chaos. AEW
Yeah.
is disorganized chaos. And
Yeah. It's not fun to
I
watch that, you know?
it's so over the place. And like I said, I've only been watching for 2 full years. and I got into it, and I've watched enough where I know, basically half the roster because they came from WWE. So I get it. But when I see they do so many things that it's like they don't have an identity of what they are, because you have a match and then you got a guy from New Japan coming in, then you got a guy from um uh uh
Both from
um
New Japan. Are you talking about
another
Okada and Osprey?
you got another from Ring of Honor coming in. Then you got another guy from this coming in and company. Oh, this guy's challenging. It's like it's chaos. It just what's his name with the mask that does all the readings for the matches coming up?
Oh, oh my God, Excalibur.
Excalibur, God bless his soul, because he's got to read all these matches. And it just, like, if you had to sum up what AEW is in a nutshell, watch 1 minute of Excalibur just read off all the matches coming up. He's saying this person challenging this one in a ladder match, and then this guy's coming over from ROH, and this guy's coming up from New Japan to challenge him in a triple threat and a tornado tag team match. It's like, what's happening? I understand you're getting the best wrestlers, but you're not creating any stars within your brand. You're just having a clusterfuck of talent wrestle. That's literally what AEW is to me. And until they establish themselves as this is what we do, this is what we are, we have this person fight this person. It just, if you're a new fan of wrestling, there's no way you're going to be able to keep up with AEW. There's 0% chance that you get
Yeah,
into AEW when you're new. And that's not the point of professional wrestling. Professional wrestling is I tune in and I go, oh, wow, I get it. All right, that character, this matchup. All right, I get it. I get the vibe. In AEW, every single week I watch, it just chaos. People are coming over from different continents, from different companies, and they're fighting each other. Then they're not fighting each other. Then they have drama. They run in, they're ringing the bell. Somebody's beating on each other. And it's like, I don't know what's happening. So that's all I have to say about AEW, because I could speak about it for an hour, but the hour would sound insane if I did describe it
yeah,
the entire
and
time.
it's
It would just be you wouldn't be able to keep up with it.
yeah, and like I said, it's sad. But I'll ask you my final question and regarding this, and then we'll move on to Will Ospreay, then to Mania.
Yeah.
Would you have aired it to begin with? What would your response have been? Like, let's go back to April 2nd. The interview just aired that Punk did with Hawani. You're Tony Khan. You feel however you feel. What would you have done, knowing you have this footage and knowing you're sitting on it? What would you have done? Would you have aired it, ignored it, released it on
I would have
Twitter?
done Great question. I would have done, like I said, I would have done the same exact thing that the Young Bucks did without the footage. I would have had
Okay.
the Young Bucks do the same promo talking about the footage, leaving it in question, giving it the viewers like, oh, wait, what happened? All right, maybe this happened. Maybe giving their take and then tying it into FTR and then going. I don't think AEW should have aired the actual footage. I think talking about the footage, confirming maybe what CM Punk talked about was true, but how we could promote this in a way where we could get another match out of it. I think they thought airing the footage would get eyeballs on them, which it did, but in the wrong way, where now we're looking at them like simps. We're like, I get they aired the footage and that was great to see, but they don't get the credibility that you wanted. And I think they should have done a promo talking about what happened, not actually show the people what happened, because what actually happened was everything CM Punk already said. So there's no reason to show it. So
Right.
I like the angle of the FTR Young Bucks rematch at Dynasty, and I'll watch it. And I'm invested now that we're talking about it. And I do want to see what happens, which I know what it's going to look like, because that's what AEW does. They constantly do the same in the ring type of false kickouts, super kicks, and all these things. And I know what they're gonna do, but I'm gonna at least watch illegally, and then we'll see what it comes about. But yeah, I would say Tony Khan, don't air the footage. Talk about it, don't air it.
Yeah, man. I feel you. I'm right there with you. Again, I totally get why you'd want to, but that's when you need someone to just, I don't know, you need that filter. And I think
Who's he
that's what we're
listening to?
lacking.
Tony Khan's listening to the Young Bucks. That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
It's
man.
Tony Khan, and the Young Bucks. And it's like, that is like a bunch of teenagers talking about something professionally. And it's like, that's never going to work. I think AEW will get better when Tony Khan hires somebody or a couple people to advise him and him take a back seat to booking and just own the company and oversee it. I think he's trying to be Vince McMahon too much and just take the Young Bucks down a little
Yeah.
bit and hire somebody that is competent enough to be like the grown man or the adult in the room. There's no adults in the
Yeah.
room right now.
Well, and that's the thing, and then we'll get to Osprey, but that's the thing that kind of frustrates me too is that everything else that we've learned about Vince to the side, just Vince, the wrestling genius and the wrestling mind, he wasn't Vince McMahon the entire time. He had
Yep.
Bruce Pritchard, he had Pat Patterson, he had
He had
all
Triple
these
H
people.
still.
Yeah, yeah, but even like in the beginning days, like he had like a core group of people helping him and helping him with finishes, helping him with the creative drive. Moving on, he like you said, like he eventually did get Triple H, but even then, like people shit on Vince Russo. He had Vince Russo at one point, and Russo was the guy who was like, okay,
Shit
yes, they're
stain,
doing.
as
I'm
Jim
sorry.
Cornette calls him.
Yeah,
Shit
yeah.
stain.
Yeah, and
I
say
love
what
that.
you want, and like I don't agree 100% with either of them, but it's like Russo, from what we heard, and people say a lot of shit about him, but the general consensus is that while Vince was focusing on Austin, Rock, Undertaker, all these guys, Russo was like, "What are we doing for Goldust? What are we doing for all these
Yeah,
other guys to make sure they're
good
still
point.
characters?" And I think that's what's missing too, and that's what's again like, and it's okay. Like it's not like Tony Khan taking a failure or taking an L or anything like that is a bad thing, like, or it should be viewed as a bad thing. Like it should be just a learning experience. You know what I mean? And it should just be like, okay, like yeah, like I'm not great with creating storylines, or maybe I am, but I
Mm,
just need to focus on two wrestlers or one program. I'll
very good
devote
point.
100% attention to that. And then you can have whoever you have in the back, but you need to have a trusted core. Because if not, like, and it, not even to mention, he's doing 1,000 other things outside of this company. You know what I mean? So that's what kind of bums me out. But do you have any other thoughts on that before we talk about Osprey?
No, let's talk about Ospreay.
All right, so moving right along, Renee Paquette came out, and I'm gonna mention her again in a second. She came out and stood on the stage and introduced Will Ospreay, and for all the negative shit up until last night, I've really enjoyed it. What they've done with Will, I think he's probably given away a little bit too much in his matches because he's so good, but I think that he's probably their future too, in a lot of ways, and could most likely be the face going forward into next year, especially if MJF doesn't stay around, um, like we spoke about earlier. But again, they were on stage, and we'll and I'm very interested to hear what you said, or your thoughts on this rather. But Will said there's a rumor going around that he's afraid of the grind. Osprey said, and again, I'm reading from ProWrestling.net, so shout out to them. Osprey said that he doesn't know where it's coming from because he's one of the only guys who travels from the UK to the United States on 8-hour flights and delivers some of the best matches the world has ever seen. He said he normally wouldn't take the bait, but the guy who said it about him was only in the position he was because he was grinding on the boss's daughter. Osprey said that
Ooh,
person, Paul Levesque, Triple H, of course, is in no position to say what the grind is all about because that person has no idea what he fights for. He said that was a reminder not to throw stones at an assassin with a machine gun. And then Osprey goes in to talk about Brian Danielson and then kind of actually get back to the wrestling and to the story that they're building to. And again, and I referenced Renee, as he said those lines about grinding on the boss's daughter, Renee looked completely uncomfortable and just kind of like put her head down too. Obviously, we all know where she came from, you know, and then the history that she probably has with them. Um, but for a variety of reasons, I'm sure she probably was uncomfortable. Because as he was saying, grinding on the boss's daughter, he was pretty much doing the gyrations too. You know what I mean? Like, dude was feeling it. So I will let you say what you had to say, and then see if I'm there with you or if I'm on the other side. So very curious.
Yes. So to backtrack, um, to have this quote. So it took me a second to realize what he was talking about, and
Oh yes.
good thing I pay attention to. Obviously, Pat McAfee and all things wrestling is, if you didn't know, Triple H did go on the Pat McAfee show, and he mentioned, I think when the crowd was chanting MJF, MJF, I think Pat being super aware, and this is what makes him, there's a lot of, if you're not a lover of Pat McAfee, there's a lot of things that you could say bad about him, and I get all of it,
Yeah.
but there's a ton of things that you could love about him. And one thing I do love about him is his awareness and being able to take what's going on in the background of him and chanting and bring it into an interview, and having that awareness is a special talent that not a lot of people have on television or YouTube or whatever you want to call it. So Triple H did mention people that are signing or what he's looking for, and something that he said, and I'm paraphrasing, is, we want people to want the grind, want to be here, want especially if you're young, we want people to sacrifice and want the grind, especially when they're young. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you might think you're established in the wrestling world or globally, but you're not. And to be in WWE, it's going to take another level. It is. And I agree with him in that. And he said, we don't want people, there's some people that we look forward to signing or something like that, where, we want people to fight for it and want to work through the grind. So obviously, those that don't know, Will Ospreay a couple months ago had contract negotiations with WWE and AEW. Some people had him signing with WWE, and he would have fit in well because he's in his prime and it's a perfect project for WWE.
Yeah.
And he did it. He chose AEW for whatever reason. I'm not going to say because I don't know. So basically, Will Ospreay responded because he took it at heart, and I get it as a human being. If I'm negotiating with said company, and said company person that I was negotiating with took a couple bars on me, I'm going to use my platform to take a couple bars back at them. I didn't do it first. That's how I would look at it, is like, I didn't initiate this. I didn't take the first shot. Hunter kind of did. He did it in a professional way where most people probably didn't even realize who he was talking about or what he was talking about. But as wrestling nerds as we are, we kind of knew. And when he started talking, Osprey, then I started to realize, oh, he's talking about the Triple H on McAfee. Like, it started to I almost had to like pause it to like recalibrate everything in me and then play it again. And I was like, oh, he's talking about how he didn't love the grind. And he talked about how, nobody grinds harder than I do. You don't, first of all, you don't know what I do it for or what I do it, the reasons I do it for. And, I travel back to Japan. I travel back here to the States, and I wrestle and I put on the best performances. Me personally, I loved it. And this is me taking credit to AEW and Tony Khan for allowing Will Ospreay to say his shot, because he's not the one that instigated what was said. And he didn't need to do a promo against Triple H, but hey, why not? It makes for better television. It makes for better drama. And we're in WrestleMania week still, technically. Wednesday was still WrestleMania week. And
Yeah.
I thought he did a great job. I thought he threw a great jab out of talking about the grime and bigging himself up. AEW crowd popped, loved it. And then he took one jab and was like, the reason why, and I love that he used the grind word. The reason why you're in a position to be where you are is because you were grinding on the boss's daughter. I thought that was the gyrations of it was a little extra. I thought he could have done it a little cooler. Yeah, I thought he could have done it a little like cool and mellow and like, all right, jab.
Maybe
but
one
hey,
time.
Yeah, exactly.
If
Exactly.
you got to, not like.
But hey, that's Will Ospreay's time to shine. That's Will Ospreay's. I'm a assigned free agent, and I'm gonna show. Not only can I do it in the ring, and I know I could do it in the ring, I'm gonna show it in a promo. So I do give it to him as like, hey, this could be my one shot to do a real shoot promo. Why not take the opportunity to do it? So I do give him credit in that because I've been watching him and he's phenomenal in the ring, almost like unreal. Doubt. Like it's insane the stuff that he could do in the ring. So the last thing that's been missing is his promo ability. And hey, you get the opportunity to do it and it presents itself, take that opportunity. So shout out Will Ospreay for firing back, just like kind of Edge did. What Will Ospreay did, I didn't expect Edge, Adam Copeland to do. Adam Copeland did it in a professional way because he has ties, and you don't want to ever, spite the nose, whatever the saying is. But he did it in a way where it's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go all in, and I love that. And obviously Renee Paquette, which I love, I love her. Like, physically, I think she's beautiful. I think she's awesome. I love her as an interviewer. But man, he took his shot and I loved it. I really loved him standing up for himself because people that know that Hunter took a shot at him and he fired back. And hopefully it's the only time he does fire back. Hopefully he doesn't keep it going and that waters down what he just did. Hopefully there's a last and only time he mentions something like that. Because I think if you continue to mention it, it loses its luster, its value. So I personally loved what he said, everything he did, because then he tied it back to his match coming up against Brian Danielson, whatever his name is. So he tied it back to that, which is great. And I love that he said, Tony Khan said, I got 5 minutes. And what did he say? He goes, every minute on television is expensive. And that ties back also to CM Punk. Yeah, I thought he did a great job. Like his 5 minutes of promo, I'm a fan of Will Ospreay is all I'm saying, is he showed me something. And that's what you need sometimes as a performer. Not that I know anything of it, but at least watching. Sometimes you need that fire and vigor to like get you going in a promo way. And he's still young. He's 30, 31 years old. So I hope that he uses this promo to be like, hey, this is what one company thinks of me. I'm going to do even better while laying my head in another company. And I'm going to become a better promo performer other than just a wrestler. The wrestler aspect, check. You got it. You know, like everybody knows it. I think you could do it in your sleep. Now, the second part of it, like Hunter said, is now we need to see a different side. So I think WWE could have helped him in that. But I love that Will Ospreay did that promo to be like, you know what? I don't need that help. I got it. Take a jab. I love it. Like I said, I hope he never mentions it again because it will be monumental to his career. But hey, even CM Punk could go from WWE to AEW back to WWE. So I know Hunter. I don't know him personally, but if Will Ospreay in 3 years wants to come to WWE, you know, if he's drawing money, Triple H is going to be like, come on down. And the last thing I'll say about that is, to tie it into WrestleMania, is Cody Rhodes one time built a fake statue or a background of Hunter's throne and took a sledgehammer to it. Yet Cody Rhodes still came back to WWE. So
and dethroned Roman Reigns, like,
right?
And that
That's
just
what I mean.
Back, like
It's so amazing. So at the end of the day, Will Ospreay did what he needed to do today in 2024 to make his image and his personality bigger, and I think he achieved that. And fuck the future as far as the short term or the long term. Like, worry about you right now, because guess what? If he's available in 3 or 4 years, whatever happens to AEW and he's available, WWE is gonna snatch him. So
Yeah, 100%.
cheers to Will Ospreay on that promo. That's my opinion. I want to hear yours.
And I here's the thing, like I don't even disagree with you. My starting point is he's it's not even like Triple H called him out specifically, or the question was about Will Ospreay and specifically. It's not like the question was, man, you had an opportunity to sign Ospreay, you missed out. How do you feel about that? And it's not like Triple H then gave the response. And
But he
yes, we
knows, but Will knows, right? Like what
but they, what
comes
about
like behind
Okada?
it.
So it's like, okay, so you feel like you're bigger than Okada, so Triple H could have been talking about Okada. How do we know
Okay,
it was
you're
about
right.
Osprey?
You're right. You're right. It
We
could
could have
have
been
been
talking about
about somebody
Mercedes
else,
Monet.
but
They just signed 3
you're
people.
100% right. I stand back.
That's my thing. No. And because it's funny because everything you said, I'm pretty much right there with you. It's just that's my main point. It's because it's like I went back and I'm like, yo, what am I missing? Like, what is he even responding to? Because I knew Triple H said that shit, but to me, it wasn't even a big deal when he said it because it could have been about a vast majority of people who, and in a lot of ways, it's not even like what he was saying was a bad thing. If you have an opportunity to make millions of dollars working a fraction of the schedule, that's not a bad thing. He just doesn't want that type of person. He wants someone who's going to want to work 300 days out of the year. Obviously, they're not doing that, but what is it? Probably up to like 200 days. He's going to want the person that's going to be on the road. He's going to want a Cody Rhodes right now. He already has his Roman Reigns. He already has his Brock Lesnar's who are on a very limited schedule. He's gonna want his full time people. So in that regard, like yeah, he probably had a few people in mind, and it very well could have been Will Ospreay. But in my mind, it's and again, Will is definitely the future wherever he's gonna be. Right? I think he's gonna win at All In, and he's gonna be the champion. He's just gonna take AEW into the future next year, and I think him and MJF, if MJF stays, is gonna be brilliant. Because Will is very good on the mic. My thing was though, to me, it kind of showed a little bit of maybe not like a guilty conscience, but like like, hey, maybe he's thinking about maybe he's internalizing and he took that personally because if I had to think specifically about who Hunter would have been referring to, my first thought would have been an Okada. We don't Okada's not that out there wrestling hard every week. Yeah, he came out the first couple shows that they had I think his first match was on Collision or something, or maybe it was on Dynamite. But he had matches back to back on Dynamite Collision, those shows. He's not out there as much as Will. He's not the focal point as much as Will is. So my out of the three, my thoughts would have been Okada, Mercedes, and then maybe a Will Ospreay. But to me, it was just like, bro, like you took
Hey, he
this
took it
kind of
personally.
personally. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, who
So,
knows what happened behind the scenes? Maybe
and
they
unless
did
that was a
talk
talking
about
point of theirs.
maybe
Yeah.
they did talk about specifically with him, hey, I want to be able to go back and I want to time with this. And
Yeah.
I'm not
And maybe
saying
that
he's
was a
right or
given.
wrong, but yeah, maybe he did have a right in responding because of the behind the scenes. And I don't think
Yeah.
Triple H will respond to this, nor should he.
No.
But
Just, yeah.
he's seen an opportunity. He took it serious. He took it, and I thought he did a brilliant promo, whether Hunter was talking about him or not. I thought he took advantage of that and did it in a professional wrestling type of way,
For
which, hey,
sure.
like I said early on, we all like. We all like to hear the drama in between. Like, come on, like
Yeah.
we
But
want them talking more.
no, 100%. But then if I'm gonna get nitpicky, the shit that he said didn't even make sense because now, like,
Okay.
your average person is not thinking of when they think of Triple H right now, like, oh, the only reason he's in the spot that he's in is because he's Triple H's or he's Stephanie's wife. You know what I mean? He married into the family. Like,
It
even
helped.
and
It helped.
when you think back on it, and he was never my favorite. Like, I appreciated him. Don't get me wrong, but like, he
Yeah.
was never like my top 5 or anything like that. I think it was very, very much needed though. Like if we didn't have Triple H back then, like as a heel, a lot could have been different. But if you think back on it, he was already doing his thing as Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He was already doing DX, and as DX already started, that's when he hooked up with Stephanie, and then that's when things, the corporation and all that bullshit. Yes, he most likely would never have touched creative if he wasn't even talking to Stephanie, much less married.
Yeah, of
So there
course.
are some givens, of course, you know what I mean? But if he wasn't good at his job, especially now, he would not be in the position that he's in. He is the most beloved figure right now, especially after WrestleMania. Like, dude, there were so many Paul Levesque, like specifically Paul Levesque chants, not even just Triple H or Hunter, but specifically this man's government name. You know what I mean? Over the entire week, and even at the Hall of Fame, they're chanting his government name because of the love that they have. And you choose this week of all weeks to respond. Like, I don't know, like that could have been a Twitter response, my guy. Like that didn't have to
What
be like it's not even
what
accurate. Like he's I don't know.
I like
Like
that we disagree. No, this is great. I love that we disagree because I love your reasoning and I agree with your reasoning. Um, First of all, I love that. I think the Paul Levesque, and I think I read the lips, and I think somebody said, I think that's the first. I
that
think
was
Sami
Stephanie.
Zayn or
It
somebody
was
said it, like
Stephanie,
leaned
yeah.
over, like, I think that's the first time you've ever been chanted Paul Levesque in your
Yeah.
like. That's what
Yeah.
made this whole week great. Like I'm telling you,
That's what I'm
right,
saying.
wrong, our opinions are right or wrong. It doesn't matter. Like this
Nah.
was the best week, 7 to 10 days of professional wrestling I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
Dude, yeah. But yeah, and even wrapping up Osprey, like I didn't hate it. I think it was unnecessary. I get it. I don't hate responding. I totally, and like you said, you're gonna punch up when you're number two. You're gonna want to punch up to number one. Totally
Yeah,
get that.
of
Don't
course.
disagree. You should do that. You should whatever. But
100%.
to me, it just wasn't logical, and it just was kind of like I don't know, couple flags for me. But